Thank you for coming, Emma, and to anyone who's watching the replay. We got such an overwhelming amount of registrations for this. I'm hoping that everyone that wanted to come has been able to come. Okay, it says 4 now. No, I don't want, it says there's 4 people in here. Or there's, I don't know. Interesting. She might be in a different room. She'll figure it out. we got some growing pains here.
Maybe she's gone into the private room instead of the live room.
Right.
She could have. Let me message her that.
Go in the live room.
Because that's a little bit confusing. You don't know which room to go into. Because I was waiting in the private room all on my own, sort of like 3 hours ago, which was a dummy run.
Well, at least you got here. I'm glad. I'm happy to have you guys both here. Okay, growing pains is right, but it's okay. This is going to be amazing. And it is good to have a dry run. So that's what I'll count this. So we have kind of a case study here. And what I was thinking when I created this is, let's talk about a specific client. Let's imagine that Johnny's mom called and that he is hoping, or she is hoping, or they are hoping that the horses can help Johnny. And Johnny is a little bit of a specialized kind of case of autism. And one of the things that he has that is not necessarily, or a few things that he has, and please jump in, you guys are both therapists too, so that's really nice.
I think they call it umbrella of neurodivergence, don't they, Cindy?
Yes.
Yeah, because I mean, that could cover a whole load of range of things, really. It could be dyslexia, it could be ADHD, it could be autism, it could be dyspraxia.
Right.
Could be quite a few different things, really.
That's understanding that, I think, is really important in developing a program. And I never say develop a program for one person. You know, if you're going to take the time to really mindfully create a program, then I would look at the demographic that will be coming after Johnny too. So some of the things to consider are, okay, which ones of these things, did I really say that? I did. Which items here would you say would not be indicative to most of your future clients, if any?
Are we talking about neurodivergent children or just general children?
Right, neurodivergent children.
I would say all of them, wouldn't you, Cindy?
I certainly would. Yes. Yeah.
Okay. You would say all of them would be.
Yeah, would be a thing.
Would be a thing for
Johnny.
For the typical autistic or neurodivergent client that might be coming after Johnny. So we wouldn't necessarily be developing a program using these things that might not resonate with all of our future neurodivergent clients.
I think most of them would resonate.
Okay, good. ADHD as well?
Well, ADHD, definitely, yes. I mean, that's what we're seeing the most of at the moment. Well, I am anyway. I don't know about you, Cindy, but it seems to have gone nuts here in the UK. Every other child has ADHD.
Yeah.
Wow.
It did that here in the 90s too. So we're just going through a cycle again of you know, and it could have been the pandemic, you know, and
I think that had a lot to do with it. But I also think it's screens myself.
I agree.
I think that's really the biggest problem for kids.
Yeah.
And young people.
Yes. Yeah.
Is that something you would want to add into a program?
Yeah, they're better outside because they need to be able to move. So movement is terribly important for them.
Right. And that way that's why the experiential learning, with the horses
is so good.
Yeah. So much better than traditional talk therapy. Yeah.
And funnily enough, I'm working with 2 of them at the moment. I had a workshop on Wednesday for a local youth club, and there was one little boy who I didn't know what his problems were, but I could see that there was something, and he was very. Sorry, excuse me.
Oh, no worries.
Sorry, it's my son. Sorry, Will. Hi, everything all right? I'm just on a Zoom call. No, it's all right. Have you left?
Delina, I'll be right back.
Okay.
I'm here, but I'm going to turn
in about
the camera
an
off.
hour or so.
Oh, sure.
Okay, everything right? Oh, right. Okay, well, hope you're all right. Yeah, give me a call in a couple of hours, all right? All right, darling, take care. Bye. Sorry.
Oh, no worries. Life happens.
It's my son and my granddaughter. I just wondered something had happened because he doesn't normally ring like that.
Oh,
they're just off on their holidays, but he said something happened, but everything's okay, so don't worry. So
good.
Yeah.
Good. Are you seeing my Facebook right now? Because I'm sending this to someone now. Someone else trying to get in here. I found a link, so that's good. So when you're thinking about creating a program for your demographic, or in this case, autistic neurodivergent children, when I put this together, Cindy had found a chart that I think really is talking about the umbrella that you two were talking about earlier. It talked about 3 levels of autism and their symptoms and support needs. And I started putting this in here. This was kind of like a last minute addition. But in this chart, which is from, let's see here, I always like to cite my sources, or Cindy's sources, I should say. Where did you send this to me? There it is.
There
it is. Psych Central.
Yep. It's interesting. I wrote my thesis, my master's thesis on autism. What years? It's like 30 some years ago, right? And I was thinking about it as much as I could remember from back then. Wow, we didn't know much.
It's amazing what you've learned.
If I can dig it up, it would be so incomplete today. You know what I mean?
I mean, I'm not an expert on autism or neurodivergent children, but I need to know more because I'm actually working with that client demographic. Right. So, I mean, I know the sort of basic stuff, but I'm not in no way an expert on it.
Yeah. And I think in the coaching realm with the horses, Emma, you don't really need to be an expert in, you know what I mean, in terms of the clinical symptoms,
No.
Like what you did the other day, you observed the kids and you're like, there's some issues here with this little fella,
Yeah, well, he was interesting because he was very disengaged, didn't want to join in with the group to begin with. But the minute he got with the horses, it was like magic. He just transformed, and he was engaged and one of my horses was just so sweet with him, and he put his hands up on the side of the horse and he just put his head there and he was just breathing and he said, I feel a connection with this horse. Well, I mean, for a 10-year-old boy to say that, I thought that was quite remarkable, really.
I have goosebumps.
That's amazing.
Goodness.
the church youth club had bought them, and I'd forgotten what 9-year-old boys coming out of school are like, and they were all over the place.
Sure.
They were quite a handful, I have to say.
Wow.
But they were good, you know. Once they'd settled a bit and we played a few games and got some energy out of them, then they were just being silly, you know. And I said, if any of you silly, I'm afraid you're not coming in to see my horses, because, you know, you need to be sensible.
We can't have that. We can't have that.
I know, but I just sometimes feel like a dragon, you know, because I'm strict and, you know, I won't tolerate it, you know, whether they're neurodivergent or not, you know, they've still got to behave, really.
That's right.
That's good. That's for their safety and just for the fairness of the horses, right? I mean, we're asking a lot of the horses anyway.
Yeah.
So when we look at this little chart here and talk about these 3 levels, as Psych Central has put in this article, and I'll make sure I put that link in here too. What kind of level, or what levels do you guys think would be most effective in the coaching realm? Do you think that all 3 are coach ready examples of clientele?
I think the thing is, you never really know what you're going to get until it's in front of you, do you? So they may have one or some or all or a couple, you know. It's quite diverse, really, isn't it?
Yes.
So I think you have to probably prepare for anything and then just think on your feet if it's not working and do something else. Maybe.
I agree.
I like that answer.
Because even the ones that we think won't respond, you know, like are disengaged and won't join in or whatever.
Yeah, I did think he'd join in, and he did.
And it's miraculous. Delina and I had a client like that, maybe about 8 years ago, Delina?
Oh, yeah.
And we were overwhelmed with emotion in terms of this little one's response to the horses. As opposed to being, you know, in school or whatever. It was just, whoa. It was beautiful.
Yeah, I know. And that's the beauty of it, really, because you can be doing something incredibly simple.
Yes.
You know, like brushing or picking a foot out or filling a hay net. So it could be something that's so mundane to you, but to them it's a completely different thing, isn't it?
And it's a huge accomplishment when you think of that child that you had saying that I feel a connection with that horse.
Yeah, and then the mother rang me afterwards, and I've got him now on a 1-to-1. The church are funding him, which is amazing. And he's going to see me on a 1-to-1, which will be amazing.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Wow.
You'll have to keep us posted on how that goes.
Yeah, I will.
I'm really interested.
Yeah.
So we have kind of a interesting situation here. Both you and Cindy are therapists. So would you say that if we have clients or coaches that are more in the life coaching realm, don't have your level of understanding of the symptoms and the idiosyncrasies and, you know, all that is autism, would you recommend that maybe some of our clients, our life coaches, stick to level 1 or 2? You know, what do you think about?
I think so, because I mean, non-verbal is quite highly. I've worked with elective mutes, and one, and that can be really difficult. And if you've got a group, you might find that some of these kids are better on a 1-to-1 as well.
Right.
Because they can be very disruptive. They can be very disruptive in a group, and then it's not fair on the other kids, really, is it?
That's very true. That's very true. The pressure too that, you know, in a general group setting, if some of the kids are not used to working in groups,
yeah,
might cause more disruption and, you know.
It might, or you could just keep the group very small, maybe
Yeah.
with what, if you know, I suppose when you have your intake, they're going to have to say if they've got something like this or if they've got a diagnosis. And maybe you keep those ones who are neurodivergent in a very small environment, because they probably feel safer with that as well.
Sure.
Oh, that's a good point. When you talk about your intake, that's kind of a mental health term, but it is something that coaches need to do as well. Would you have a group intake? Would you recommend having a individual intake if you know that you're working in this demographic?
Well, what I always do, if I have anybody, they have to fill out a client booking form. They have to fill out a consent form if they're under 16, you know, parental consent, and the child has to sign it too if they're capable. They have to fill out a safety and a waiver release, so they're not going to sue me. What else do they have to do? Yeah, so basically, and then with some, if you know that they're neurodivergent, if they're coming to me for trauma therapy, then that's a little bit different because they may not have had a diagnosis, but I do an assessment measure then, and I would do ACEs or some of the assessment measures that we use for that kind of diagnostic work. But you wouldn't necessarily be doing that in a coaching scenario.
That's true. That's true.
So, you know,
it sounds like you do most of that independently, though.
I do.
You meet most of your clients individually first.
Most of my work is one-to-one on the trauma side of things, but the coaching side of things, I'm moving more into group work, but that's more coaching as opposed to therapy.
Excellent. Excellent. So this is something maybe you could have some sort of tool and see if your client fits into one of these levels.
Yeah.
Most of the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't see why you couldn't. You could make this into a checklist and just see if, you know, you would be comfortable in a session with that client, or if you wanted to see if you could bring on a mental health professional for their support.
I think depending on the modality that you've trained with in EAL, and I trained with an organisation called I Feel. We are allowed to work on a one-to-one without being a mental health professional, but it was very specific that you couldn't do trauma work. You know, you could only stick to coaching, which is how it should be. But then I went on and did the trauma work, so now I can say I can do that as well. But there are some, like Iagala, that they require two facilitators, don't they? You have to have one horse professional and one, you know, and so sometimes with children like that, yeah. So sometimes with kids like that, you know, it can be really helpful to have two people.
Even if it's just as another pair of eyes and someone to help redirect the kids, especially in this demographic, or if someone needs a little extra support during a session, you have a couple people.
I think if you had a group, you know, then if you're working with a group and you had one of these children within a group, you need volunteers or somebody who can say, do you need some time out, or put a safe place there for you? You know, do you need to go and run around the field or something and then come back when you've got calm, you know, that kind of thing.
I got the wiggles out.
Yeah, I did that the other day without really realizing. I had another autistic boy. It's really funny. I seem to be getting loads of autistic boys of about 10 at the moment. And parents came. He came just to see whether he'd like the horse. Absolutely loved it, but he could not stand still. He was And so I said, that's okay. I said, you can, wiggle around as much as you like. I said, but you can't wiggle around near the horses. So if you want to go and wiggle, you go and run around my arena. You can run around it as many times as you like, and then come back when you're calm, and then you can see the horses. And that worked really well.
Oh, that's great. And you gave, I think one of the reasons that worked so well is you gave him an outlet for that energy. Instead of just saying, calm down, can't see the horses until you calm down.
Yeah, exactly. And I think coaches need to understand that some of these children need specific things, like they need a place where they get a bit overwhelmed, where they can sit quietly, or they need to get the wiggles out, or they need to maybe have a drink, or they need a toilet break, or I don't know. What else would you say, Cindy?
I think sometimes they need to step away from the commotion or the activity and just kind of, like you said, take a little time for themselves, whether it be walk around the arena or, maybe go sit under a tree for a bit, and just kind of collect themselves, because it can be overwhelming, that external stimuli with all the kids and the horses and the birds and the dogs and
noise as well.
Yeah.
Some of them don't like noise, do they? Or too much
noise.
That's very true. Yeah, they don't. Let's see here. So I think this chart is really nice. I think this will help a lot of people that are looking to go into.
I like that it's not written. I like that it's not written in psychobabble terms.
Right? Yes.
I like that it's written for anybody. I just like the way it's put together. It's very concise and kind of spoke to me. Yeah.
Yes, thank you for finding that, because I think that adds a lot to this discussion. It might not even be a bad idea to take a look at some of these bullet points and decide how you might handle them. Just have kind of a playbook. Yeah,
maybe on booking, you could put the levels out there and say, does your child require any of the following? And use it as a tick box. So when they book, does your child have any special, things that he requires or that I should know? So you're not nothing's a surprise, hopefully then.
That's a great idea. Yeah, put it in with your intake paperwork.
Yeah,
check boxes, and I think that's a great idea.
I mean,
I think that will help too.
I think it would, because it might just, has your child got a diagnosis? That's the first question to ask, isn't it?
Oh, that's
has your child been? And they think, well, no, because it's so difficult to get one here. But we think he might be. Do any of does any of the following apply to your child, or is there anything that he does that that might look a bit like this sort of thing? I don't know.
I think that's great. Do you think, Cindy, that it's as difficult to get a diagnosis of this on the spectrum here in the US as it is in the UK, from what Emma was saying?
From my most recent experience, I think it's overdiagnosed.
We're
on the other end. Yeah. Just because somebody doesn't like loud noises, or because a child at the age of 3 walks on her tiptoes, does not mean
that they're autistic. No, exactly. And I think the other thing is that parents do an awful lot of Dr. Google, don't they? So
my goodness.
They'll look at it and they say, oh, my child's this and my child's that, and actually the child just might have really poor boundaries because they're really weak with them, and they just never say no. It could be that.
or they're responding to chaos in the home that mom and dad aren't telling you about, you know?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Or there's trauma in the family, you know.
Right.
For whatever reason, you know, because there has been links with ADHD and trauma.
Right.
There's a very good book by Gabor Mate. Have you read any of his stuff?
No. What?
It's called
I'm going to write it down.
Scattered Minds. It's called by Gabor Mate. And he is a therapist, but he's also got ADHD himself. And so he writes it from the perspective of what it feels like, which is great because he's highly intelligent. But a lot of his thinking in this book is that a lot of it is just linked to trauma.
Linked trauma. Interesting. We're talking about doing, we have a book club that we've done in the past, so that helps him writing that down. We like to dive into that.
It's called Scattered Minds.
Scattered Minds.
And that's specifically on ADHD, but you know, there's lots of stuff out there. It's just, it seems to be the buzzword at the moment here.
Yeah.
And I agree. And I also, the other person that I think is really interesting to listen to, I don't know if you've heard of her, Cindy, is a Dr. Caroline Leaf. Have you heard of her? She's a neuroscientist.
Yes, I have.
And she's very good. She's got a podcast and she talks about all sorts of things on this podcast, but she did a podcast the other day with another therapist, and they were discussing ADHD and the overdiagnosing of it, and really that there's no even real scientific evidence to suggest it even really exists. Which is, I mean, the behavior exists, but it's sort of, it's not necessarily a thing, and that how children just come from the idea that there's something wrong with them.
Right.
Oh, there's something wrong with them, so let's, you know, we've got to do something to fix them. Let's give them some medication.
Oh,
yeah,
I know.
Put a label on everything, all of these behaviors.
No, when I first started practicing, remember I don't know if you guys had that over there in the UK, but we had an assessment for the teacher to fill out, and then assessment for the parent to fill out. And if they, you know, they cross-referenced or whatever, and if they matched, then they absolutely got an appointment with the psychiatrist. And I'm like, stop.
Yeah, well, I think, you know, there was that, but now, unfortunately, in our country, our mental health, our whole system is broken. You know, we're like a third world country. Honestly, you don't want to be living in the UK right now.
Wow.
You know, our health service is broken. We've got not enough people. Our mental health services is broken. Children are having to wait up to a year to get any kind of help. People are having to wait up to a year to get any kind of help, unless they can pay for it privately, and even then, you know, it's absolutely rammed. So it's not very easy. So people are looking for alternatives.
Right.
Like this.
Like coaching, yes.
Like coaching, because, you know, they can't get, and even if they do get a diagnosis, they can't, you know, for a child to say that's neurodivergent, I mean, case in point, this little boy of 10, not the one I saw the other day, but another one, the parents have been fighting for ages to get him a special educational plan so that he can go to a school that will meet his needs, because mainstream school just won't cut it, and he gets into trouble, and because, you know, it's not the right environment for him, really.
Sure.
And the thing is that he's now 10. In a year's time, he will be going into secondary or school, you know, so secondary education. And the school, they had to pay to get he is autistic, but they've had to pay to sort of get a special educational needs plan. And they've even had to go to the local MP, and even then it's had to go to, you know, they just can't get it. Which means that without a special educational plan, no special educational needs school will look at him because they're so oversubscribed.
Wow. And so the poor kids are waiting
what
forever.
do you do with it? Yeah, what do you do with him? In the meantime, he's also getting older. He'll hit puberty. Then suddenly, the hormones will kick in, and he's quite aggressive as he is now.
Right.
So, if they can't sort of channel that now before he gets too much older, it's going to be very difficult.
Oh,
I'm so glad that coaching is an avenue that we can offer to clients like that, because that's just terrible.
And to be fair, I think that a lot of coaching is possibly more beneficial to them than therapy in a way. Well,
I agree 100%. Yes.
Because I mean, the thing is with therapy, it's all a little bit hypothetical sometimes anyway, isn't it, really?
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Just from what I can see, and I'm not really a great expert, I haven't been a therapist that long. I've only been a therapist since 2020, a clinical trauma therapist. So my study is quite recent, but it is mainly the coaching that seems to have the more transformative kind of outcomes, really.
I'm very interested in that idea, and I wonder if that is because a lot of therapy is really focused on the past behaviors, past experiences. What do you think about that?
Well, I think it depends on the therapy. I mean, I don't know, what kind of therapist are you, Cindy? What do you do? What was your specialism?
I work a lot with children, children and adolescents. I did a lot also with the elderly. I used to joke I did diapers to diapers,
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm not a counselor, and I'm not an integrative psychotherapist or anything like that. I am just literally a trauma therapist, which is very specific.
Yes.
So
with trauma,
with trauma therapy, we concentrate a lot more on what we call the somatic, about the body, where are you holding this in your body, and it works really well alongside the horses, because you can really sort of tap into that, because horses being a flight animal, and what can you feel the horse's heartbeat? What's your heartbeat doing? That kind of thing.
Sure.
Which really helps them to ground and feel safe. But we don't really do an awful lot of processing and talking about the trauma. In fact, we do very little of that.
No.
Although we do process the trauma I use other modalities like CBT and something called EFT, which works really well for kids. The tapping, tapping on acupressure points. That's I've had really good results with that. But
wonderful.
A lot of it is a little bit, I don't know, it's really about making them feel safe, isn't it, really, to begin with? Because you might be the only safe person that they know.
That's huge. And I think too is understanding the client that you are working with and trying to make it personal. Education always happens when it is personal to the person. And I think in coaching, it's the same thing. So trying to tap into the interests, however narrow that they are.
It's all about the relationship, isn't it? I think.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Whether you're coaching or whether you're a therapist, it's the same in that respect.
For sure, for sure. So taking the time to really set the stage, I think, for an autistic client is important. Not rushing the process, letting the horses really kind of dictate how fast things move. And how would you, in your own practices, partner with the horses and clients that are on the spectrum or neurodivergent? How might you use their natural instincts and herd behavior with this clientele?
I think a lot of observation, if they can do it, but they may not be able to do it, the kids, but they generally can. Being in the herd, watching them, hanging out with them is quite good. But I think they quite like task-based things as well. So like grooming, for instance, it's very somatic, you can, and that's very calming. So you don't necessarily have to groom with even a brush. You can just do it with your hands, if the horse doesn't mind. And that sort of acts as a kind of soothing mechanism for the child as well. So
let's talk a little bit about that and about sensory issues that are often common with autistic children and autistic persons. If they have a hard time with sensory, how do you think your clients will interact with the horses? Do you think that they will either be drawn to them or have a hard time with the touch?
The ones I've experienced, and they're not many, but I have worked with probably about 4 or 5, they all seem to be drawn to it because they like the feeling of the touch. But I don't really know. I mean, I haven't had one that doesn't want to touch a horse yet.
Right. I don't think we have either.
We haven't either. No, we have not.
We've
had some that are very reactive to the manure.
Yes.
I know.
The bugs, and the dirt.
Yeah.
Yeah. But generally when they get close to the horses, that's almost forgotten.
Yeah. They just become very absorbed in what they're doing, which is good.
That is
so I
good,
think
right?
probably with these type of children, they probably need to have a bit more structure, possibly, I would say, than too much reflective, because I don't think they can probably do that very easily.
The reflective, certainly they can observe, but they might have a hard time communicating what they are observing. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, but they could, well, it doesn't matter really what they're observing, because there's no right or wrong to it. What I'd say to anybody when they come is what you see, anything that comes to your mind, whether it's a random thought or anything, you might have a feeling, you might have a thought, you might, you can write down what you think the horse is doing, whatever comes to mind, you can write down, and it's quite interesting what comes back. Even with adults, you get things like, did I have the other day? I mean, there was one lady I just did this divorce and separation retreat last weekend, and this lady, she was very specific about, this horse is main laid on the right, and this horse is main laid on the left, and she was very observant about sort of those kind of things. And then, somebody might say, oh, that one's making a horrible face at the other one. That one reminds me of my brother.
Oh, yeah.
Like that, that kind of thing.
We have heard a lot of that. And we could always also, in observation, allow them to draw.
Yes, drawing, I think, is really good.
Drawing helps, I think, too. Yeah, very interesting. Oops. Okay. I thought I hit a key that was going to be a bad thing, but I did not. Okay. So when we think about our program goal, for a program that we want to write that would appeal and be effective for a broad demographic in this niche, right? We don't want to write something so specific to Johnny that it doesn't hit as effective for a larger demographic in or on the spectrum for kids on the spectrum. Do you have any ideas of goals that might be?
Well, I think the first thing would be to learn how to regulate their body.
Ooh.
Because if they can learn to ground themselves, and they can start to become self-aware of, where am I feeling, they might not be able to verbalize that they're anxious, but they might think that they've got a tight tummy. Where are you feeling that? So I think if you can learn, they can start to become aware of emotional regulation. I think that's the biggest thing, really, that most parents would love them to be able to do, because it gives them a little bit of self-control. Rather than having a meltdown, I can go away and I could tap. I could use a tool. You know, what else can you do? I could go and brush a horse. I could go for a walk. I could go and brush the dog. Or, I don't know, I could go and take a deep breath. Great. So I think that would be for me, that would be the biggest gain.
That these kids, or anyone on the spectrum, really could benefit from.
Or anybody with trauma, you know, it's what we do.
Or anybody with trauma. Interesting. Can you think of another common challenge that we might run into?
Well, I'm just trying to think.
We can kind of look up here too.
Inattention. You know,
inattention.
They do lose focus quite quickly. So I don't think you can give them very detailed instructions. Instructions need to be short and not too many words, I think.
I think that's an important tip there.
Yep.
Instructions short, to the point.
Yeah.
Without a lot of interpretation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
inattention and loss of focus. Okay. And then kind of piggybacking off of that, I think of communication skills.
Yeah, absolutely. Because that's the other thing. Because I suppose some of them, is it right, Cindy, that some of them can't read facial expression?
Correct. Oops.
I hear you.
Can you hear me? Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Because I can't find if I'm on or not, because I am technology challenged.
You are definitely on.
Thank you, darling. I'm like, oh, I'm glad I didn't curse.
I don't think anyone would mind.
No.
Frustration. Oh, no, absolutely. They have the hardest time reading the room, you know. They really
then
do.
Maybe that could be a task that we could teach them with
absolutely
what the horses are looking like. So do you think this horse is happy or sad? Do you think
I love that.
You know, do you think this horse is you know, what do you think this horse is feeling, you know, from this picture? And they may not know.
Yeah.
Because if they can't read it in humans, but they sometimes can be very intuitive with animals.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
So it may be that they can communicate because it's nonverbal.
That makes me really think of Temple Grandin and all the studies she's done, and the fact that in her work, she talks about the fact, and I'm certainly no expert, that many autistic and neurodivergent persons think in a similar way to animals in pictures.
Oh, okay. Well, that's interesting.
Brandon. Yeah, so that's very interesting, and maybe something to
maybe picture flashcards then.
Flashcards, yeah. Flashcards. I'm just writing down some ideas as we talk here. I'll move them around later.
Yeah, I was wondering whether, you know, you could make it into a game.
Oh, definitely.
You could make it an opposites game, you know, so you
could opposites game.
If you had some nice little pictures of horses, and this is what I need to find for this session that I'm going to be doing at the end of July. For these children aren't autistic, but they are age 8 to 10, and they're bringing in much more body language with the horse. So I want to find some really good pictures of horses that, you know, because we know that there's 17 facial expressions that a horse can make.
Oh, yeah.
There and there's
are
also calming
the
signals
horse
and all
path
sorts of things.
Cards. Have you ever seen the horse path cards?
Oh, we love those.
Those are beautiful.
Oh, yes.
And they're Mustangs. They're pictures of Mustangs is it Arizona? I can't remember where they are.
It's
but
out
I'll find you the link, Emma, and I'll send it to you.
Thank you. That would be amazing because, I want to talk to, these aren't neurodivergent children now, but, the Pony Club, just going back to that, is that these kids, they love their ponies, but mostly it's mummy doing them.
Oh, yeah.
And there's quite a competitive element, and they just get on and do their thing. And the horse is a little bit of a tool. The horse has got to jump, or it's got to go and do a dressage test, or it's going to a pony club rally, or it's doing this, or it's doing that. And I think they recognize the fact that, to make it more holistic, they've got to be thinking more about horses as a sentient being.
Oh, for sure.
Which I'm just so pleased about because, this has been a very long time coming.
That's a long road. I'm glad to hear that that's happening a little bit more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They'll
thinking
still
about
have
horses.
Their way of doing things, but they're talking about pressure release, sort of negative reinforcement, which is fine. We use that, but they're also beginning to talk a bit about positive reinforcement as well. So really that's good. Yeah,
that's really good to hear.
Just going back to the neurodivergent children, I think flashcards could be quite good.
I think so too. Flashcards
because you could make a game, and maybe if you've got maybe 2 or 3 of them, or even one of them, go around the arena. You could stick them up in the arena, couldn't you, or somewhere, or around the yard or something, and say,
for sure.
I want you to go and see if you can find me a picture of a horse that looks happy. Why do you think that horse is happy?
That's very interesting. What if the flashcards were of human emotions and they needed to find the equivalent in a horse?
Yeah, well, you could maybe have 2 side by side. See if you can find me the happy person. See if you can find me the happy horse. Which horse is happy? Which person's happy?
Oh, that's really good. That's really good. Yeah, what a great activity that is, for sure. So that makes me think we need to add emotions, recognizing emotions.
Yes, recognizing emotions. That's really good.
And we can do that with flashcards. I think that's a great activity.
And the thing is, I've seen things, there is something that's come out, which you might like to have a look at, called Equimotional.
Oh, yes.
Very good. Yeah. Have you seen Equimotional? Yeah. Well, I know the girl who started that. And
Charlie?
Well, I know the other one, Flick, Sarah Flick. Anderson.
Wow.
But well, she's not far. She doesn't live far from me, actually. But they're much younger than me, and that's great. And I'm really pleased for them because they obviously have got a really good understanding of that. Flick's a counsellor as well as and I think Charlie, I don't know what she does, but anyway, she's divided this whole Dora and Beanie thing and written a whole narrative around it, which is good. And the British Horse Society are promoting it, which is great.
Oh, wonderful. See, things are widening. Do they generally do mostly children in their programming?
Yes, they do. But they might be quite a good resource. The only thing is that, we're sort of slightly in competition because I'm not. There's enough work. Honestly.
Oh, there's totally enough work for everyone. Yeah. I've actually talked to Charlie a little bit, and we were going to connect with her and Equimotional to do kind of like a little challenge when we were doing the club earlier. A couple of years, maybe a year ago. Not
well,
that
I
long.
think she's literally just got this thing up and running, and I get just seeing her posting stuff all the time, and she obviously has been working really hard on her content, and she's kind of flying with it, which is great.
It is great. I love seeing that. I love seeing positive
but it
change.
May be that she may have some sort of resource already.
Sure, absolutely. She may. Yeah, absolutely.
Although I think it's difficult with cartoons to sort of show what a real horse looks like. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah. I think I'd rather use, for me, I would rather use a real horses, real expressions rather than, because, an artist drawing is good, but it's not real.
it's still open to interpretation.
Yeah.
As is anything really. But when, you know, those new-ish Polaroid cameras that you can have out in the arena with you, they are just like the old Polaroids. You could take a picture and it just spits it out. That might be a good way of doing that.
That would be good.
Yeah.
That would be good, because then you could use your own horses then as well, couldn't you?
Yeah, you could.
Because you could take a picture of horses' floppy lips. Do you think this horse is relaxed? He's got a nice floppy lip, you know, that kind of thing. Do you think this horse is worried? He's got his head up high. He's got showing the whites of his eyes, you know, that kind of thing.
Yes, I think that would be very good for these clients, this demographic. So we've got regulation of their bodies, emotional regulation, inattention, loss of focus, communication skills, recognizing emotions. Is there anything else you can think of that you'd want to focus on in this program?
I think, you know, following instructions, they can't remember them sometimes. So you've got to make them easier for them somehow. So whether you use color, if you're saying they see in pictures, then maybe if you're giving an instruction rather than using words, you could possibly use pictures. I don't know.
That's a great idea. Following instructions.
Because by the time you've explained it, they've forgotten it.
Or they're off to something else. Or
their mind's gone somewhere else. Yeah, because their attention span's short.
Yeah, it is. It is.
So it's almost like having a little map for them.
Having a little map. I like that.
You could make a little booklet, couldn't you? You could make a little map.
Sure.
I love the map idea. And
I do too. Yeah.
And if it is true that your client sees more like that, a map would be very interesting for them, I think. Yeah, very good, very good. All right, so when we look up here,
so the
high interest to specific topics. Yeah. What were you going to say, Emma?
Sorry, just on the top one, on level 1 again, trouble understanding and following social rules. Now, how are we going to cover that?
I think the communication. And what about when we talk about rules? I mean, we do have rules around our horses, right? You were talking about, Emma, not that you don't run with my horses.
Right.
I wonder if there is a activity we could do that they create
their own rules. Yes, that would be good, because they're more likely to keep them if they've had some input into them.
Yeah, and then maybe that's a whole project. Maybe they have to make some signs so they can refer to.
Yeah.
What do you guys think if they also come up with activities, or, you know, what happens if those rules are broken?
I think it depends whether it's a dangerous rule or not.
Sure. Yeah.
So if it's a dangerous rule, like, oh, I've just run behind the horse, or I've shouted in his ear, or I've, you know, I don't know, I've hit him.
Oh, yeah. Right.
I mean, I would have one strike and they'd be out. I wouldn't care, because I just wouldn't put my horses through that.
But, would you actually excuse them from your program, or
probably.
Is it kind of an individual?
If they were aggressive to my horses, then there's no way I'd have them back.
No. I agree.
My horses are too precious. I wouldn't let them do that.
Yeah. And that's it too. We like to advocate for the horses. They are partners. They're not tools in our programs.
That's
so
right.
I love hearing that, Emma. I love hearing that.
Or the dog. You know, the other thing.
Or the dogs. Yeah.
The dogs really are so much part of it too, because I've got a husky who's really fluffy and he's just got a beautiful nature, and he loves some of these kids. And so quite often, sometimes the session has gone well, we thought we were going to have a horse session, and we've had a dog session.
You had a you know, we've had that happen too, with cats, rabbits, chickens.
Yeah,
bugs.
And you just kind of have to go with the flow, don't you?
Oh yeah, for sure, for sure. While you were thinking about, or while you were talking about that, and just the natural progression into kind of pivoting into whatever they're interested in, because they do have such specific focus and almost blinders on, you know, when there's something of interest to them. I think it makes a lot of sense with this demographic to pivot and to use that topic, whatever they're so engaged in your sessions.
Yeah, I mean, I had a little boy, he was only 6, and he's not neurodivergent, but he was highly anxious little boy who had been through a very acrimonious divorce, parents, and so he was anxious about a lot of things, really, and he was a bit obsessed with death. And he was only 6, and I think it was because, and loss, it was all about loss and death, and his dad was a bit unpredictable, but his granddad, he had a lot to do with his granddad, and his granddad had a dog that died, and so he kept talking about the dog that died. And I think that had really sort of played on his mind. And I can't really remember what I said about that, but I think, you know, it was all right in the end. I said, well, I know what I said. I said, sometimes I gave him a glove, and I said, you know, when something dies, we all die, you know, and that's your body bit, and that's died. But this bit, you know, that's the real part of you, that's your spirit part, and that bit lives on. So that was sort of like a visual that he could see, and he seemed to be okay with that. But he loved bringing this doll, this little Rapunzel doll, with him. Every time he came, he had to bring Rapunzel. So we made a session around Rapunzel. You know, what would Rapunzel like to do today? And he made up stories. He was highly imaginative. He made up stories about Rapunzel was going to see Alfie, and then they were going to go for a ride together, and then she was going here, there, or whatever. So we made up a story, and he made the story up. So yes, I mean, if they've got, you know, something like a car, or I don't know, it's just getting creative with that, really, isn't it?
Getting creative, which that's honestly one of my favorite parts. And I think too that you bring up a really important fact that, you know, there are some things, and I think therapists are probably, they have an easier time talking about than maybe the coaches that are just starting out, like death, you know, not just shutting that conversation down, but actually having that analogy for them. And, you know, yeah, that's very interesting. I love that. I love the analogy of the glove. Yeah.
Well, it's nice. Quite a physical one that you can see, because I've got it here, you know, I've got a pair of gloves here, I've got a pair of riding gloves, and yeah, you just sort of say, look, you know, this part's your body, but you know, when that bit dies, but that bit, the bit that's really you, that bit lives on. Nice. You know, and it's just such a simple thing. It's a simple thing for them, isn't it? And they can understand that.
And that might have been all it took, you know, to kind of put
he has
new perspectives.
Really. Yeah. But I think because he was going through a lot of loss, you know, he'd obviously lost his daddy, who wasn't living there anymore as well. And there'd been a lot of arguments and things in the home.
Oh, poor little guy.
I know, very sad.
It is. What do you guys think of, I had an idea, it probably left me. Oh, rigid and inflexible behavior. As much as we want to use their interests, we also need to, and we want to respect neurodivergence, right?
Yeah.
But we also need to prepare our clients for the fact that in relationships, we have to be more flexible. How can we do that in a program like this? Or behavior? I mean, if it is not tolerated in society or could get you arrested, that's a problem.
I had it once or twice, and I'm not an expert on this again. And the trouble is, I just tend to coach on the hoof, really. I'm not a planner, which is why this is so good for me, because I'm not a planner. I tend to be quite reactive to what's in front of me. And I remember getting 2 children from a special educational needs school that came with their carers. And there was one girl who was autistic, and I worked with her. She was 12 or 13, but probably had the average age of about 9.
Okay.
Or 10, maybe. And she was fine to begin with. But if she didn't want to do something because it got a little bit hard, she sort of, I don't want to do it now. And the thing is that they don't really say, come on, I'd like you to try. You know, I don't know what the criteria is, but, you know, they don't seem to have much, I don't know. There's a really fine line, isn't there, between recognizing that rigid or inflexible behavior and actually her just being a bit lazy, which she was. So she kept saying to me, I need to go to the toilet. And she'd arrived for the session, and the first thing she did was go to the toilet. And so I said, that's fine, go to the toilet. And then she came out, and we were doing a bit, and she was quite a big girl, and I think found physical activity quite hard work, sweeping and that sort of thing, probably not her favourite thing in the world. Did like brushing the horses and that sort of thing, but after a while she said, can I go to the toilet again? And I just knew that it was just a bit of a, like, I've had enough of doing this and I just need a distraction. I need to go to the toilet. And I didn't think she needed to go at all. I said, do you really need to go? I'm so mean. I said, are you sure do you think you can hang on? And she said, yes, I think so. And I said, okay, well, hang on then, hang on until we've finished and then you can go. And I didn't know whether it was right or wrong, or whether I'd said the right thing. And I suddenly thought, blimey, I've probably gone and said completely the wrong thing, because the special educational needs people were standing there and they never made a comment. And she just carried on with the session and got on with it.
And she was okay.
She was fine.
Yeah. I wonder too how it would have been if you would have said.
But if I said no, I could have had another one that might have gone into a complete meltdown.
Oh, totally. Right.
And I don't know. I don't know quite what I would have done then.
Right. But I think that you're experienced enough to just naturally go to,
definitely.
You used your tools. I wonder too if you could redirect, I guess that's a good question. Is it redirecting to what we're doing in the moment when this, as an example, this girl decided she needed to go to the toilet again? Or do we let her come up with an activity to do with the horses at that time? Which
Maybe.
do you think?
I don't know. What do you think,
ideas?
Cindy? Because I don't really know what you would do then if you did have this very rigid behavior and you couldn't change it. What would you suggest?
I would probably put it back on the client and say, what are you feeling like you'd like to do? And what is going on right now? Can you describe to me how you're feeling? And let's go with that. If they say, well, I don't want to be with the horses, which I don't think we've ever had that happen.
Nope.
But then I'd say, okay, well, would you like to take a walk? What would you feel like? Because to fight that rigid behavior just sets you both up for failure.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So I think it's about redirecting, really, isn't it? So we've got to think about something. How do we redirect?
Right. Just it's it's funny. I keep thinking about the theater that we were in with community mental health, and we had a couple people on the spectrum, and one of them, when he first started with us, I mean, now community theater is a very busy place, everybody's doing this and that, and how he would initially he would separate himself from the crowd. Then he started wearing earbuds, and listening to music or a book or whatever. Then he started bringing a book. So like I've watched him over these last 10 years, how he's learned to cope. But I'll tell you what, this guy, who is a young man now, knew everybody's lines.
Did he?
Wow.
Wow.
Like the first rehearsal. I'm like, dude, I don't know my lines still.
That's incredible, isn't it?
Like, yes. But you would think that he was disengaged and not, he wasn't. But he got to the point, I would see him at the library, when I wasn't working, and he'd be there picking out books, and he initiated hello to me, which was, oh my
that's
God, I almost
amazing.
started crying right there.
Oh, that's amazing, isn't it? That must make it so worthwhile.
It was wonderful. But what the director of this theater group that is supposed specifically for people with mental health issues, and he was wonderful. He just let him do his thing. He'd tell him, he knew when his part was, he'd come in, he'd slam it out of the park. And then he'd go back to listen, putting his headphones on, and and that's how he, so it was sort of, he's still engaged. He didn't run out in a panic or,
but obviously he learned that. Did anybody teach him that, or did he just work that out for himself?
I really believe that the bulk of it was his ideas. He was just encouraged to do what made him feel comfortable to get through those moments. And
so maybe that's what we need to put in for the rigid or inflexible behavior. So maybe not too many choices. You could, because quite often if they're little or they're, sometimes they'll say, I don't know. And you say, well, you could do this or you could do that. What would you like to do? You can either do this or you can do that. Just two choices.
Just two, make two choices.
And if I have more than two choices, I get overwhelmed.
Amen. Me too.
So I suppose you could have a couple of choices that are a little bit quieter. For instance, you could go and do some colouring, or you could go for a walk. If they want an active choice, you could go for, I don't know, go and kick a ball around the garden or something.
I think those kind of things too, if when we're talking about creating the rules together, we could say, okay, when we are feeling overwhelmed and we need to kind of take a minute, what would you like to do? And then, instead of going to the bathroom or to the toilet, what else could we do in this moment? Maybe that would help. That's kind of an interesting way to help with a flexibility.
Well, it gives them some agency, doesn't it?
It does. It does.
And it may make them refocus their attention.
Right. Yeah. So we have about 6 things here. I think that's enough for...
I think that's an awful lot to be going on with.
Oh, yeah, for sure. We don't have to use all of this. So can you think of a theme or a goal that kind of collectively would be a statement of our focus and our intention for this program? So we've got regulation, emotional and regulating their bodies, inattention, loss of focus, communication skills, recognizing emotions, following instructions, making choices.
So we're thinking of a name, are we?
We're thinking of a goal, the outcome for a program.
Self-aware, maybe self-awareness. Self-awareness.
Self-awareness. I love that. Self-awareness. Okay. Self-awareness.
Because they're not always aware of themselves, are they?
They are not.
And so if they can learn to become aware of how they're showing up and how that impacts other people, then they can make a change, can't they?
Yes, that's perfect.
I love that. And that really does, it does encompass all of those things.
Yeah.
Self-awareness. Sure, where is their struggle? Is it with self-awareness, or is it with awareness of other people's emotions and how to deal with other people? Or is that like the second program?
I think that was more the second program, don't you?
That would be like a separate, yeah. Okay, very good, very good.
I think sometimes there's a level of frustration in them because they are feeling all these things, but they can't articulate them.
Right.
So if you can give them, or help them to find the words for what they're feeling, I think that would be really helpful. Finding your voice.
Finding your voice.
Oh, I love it.
I like it too.
Although some parents might say, well, we already know what.
Yeah, we don't want to find the voice. They're very noisy. I think we all want the best, though.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing, actually, something I was talking about just this morning with a young girl who comes to help in the mornings. Her brother got ASD, and she said you can't change anything quickly.
No transition. Yeah.
So really they, so changes have to be done gradually, or you have to give them time to. You have to set out the expectation before you do it. So setting expectations, I think, would be quite important.
Another good one.
Because they can't deal with change quickly.
No.
Do you think that should be 8?
Even if you go from one arena to the other.
Well, I think it would be setting expectations would come before 8.
Oh, okay.
And then dealing with change would come.
And then dealing with change?
So setting expectations, I think, would be 7.
That's true. Because you have,
Maybe,
so you're setting expectations, so you could practice that, because you could talk to them, couldn't you, about horses and how horses don't like you to do something suddenly. You have to prepare them.
Right.
Change can be scary. It can be frustrating for the horses.
Yeah. And
talking sort of through the horses,
preparing them for a change. I like it.
So we've got a lot of good stuff here.
Yeah, we do.
I think we're ready to move on to the fun stuff. So we have our goal. It's self-awareness. But now we're going to talk about session goals. What is it that we want to accomplish in session 1 that is going to be supporting finding our voice and self-awareness? And ideally, it would have one of these things or more within the session. Because when we do this, we can talk about the common challenges to parents, to schools, and we can show how we are assessing, and that's a whole nother class we'll get to. We're assessing what we're teaching, and we know it's effective. We're assessing our coaching sessions, and I can say, this is where we talk about emotional regulation, and this is what we did.
I think probably, I don't know about you, Cindy, but I think the first goal would be to set the expectations.
I like it.
So setting expectations and following instructions, I think, would be the first one, because without that, you can't really do any of the rest of it.
I absolutely agree. Sorry.
No, you're fine. Are you getting the bread out of the oven? You better not burn the bread.
I didn't burn the bread. It looks good.
I wish I was there to eat it. I'm starving.
I do too.
She makes the bestest bread. The bestest.
Whereabouts are you both? Are you in Michigan?
Yes.
Wow, because my son is coming to Michigan later on in June.
Oh, no
came last
kidding.
year. My youngest, yeah. He went.
We are near Port Huron. We're like near the Thumb.
I can't remember the exact place he went, but it was around a big lake.
Oh yeah, there's lots of those.
We have 5 of those.
Yep.
Oh wow. No, well he went to coach football out there.
Oh wow.
For like a Camp America kind of thing.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
With young people from all over the world, and so and he loved it.
I would imagine that would be in Metro Detroit somewhere, wouldn't you, Cindy? Where the stadiums
not
are?
far. I think it's just above Detroit.
Oh, that's not far from us, really. I mean, yeah.
I could ask my husband. He's a huge football fan. He works with a gentleman that was born. Actually, he's one of our best friends in Norwich, in the UK. Right. And he writes a podcast for Huron City Radio, and it's broadcast on the BBC. So now they both watch football. They both have their favorite teams. I think his is Manchester City, and my husband's is, I can't remember. Chelsea, maybe? I can't remember.
Chelsea. My other son used to work for Chelsea.
Oh,
and we're talking about soccer here, right? We're talking about soccer.
Yes.
Sorry.
Yeah, this is soccer. It's not American football. No.
Switch my mind here.
I know.
I am not sports. I'm not
soccer.
Sporty.
Yeah, I'm huge
soccer.
Sporty, and she's not sporty at all.
Cindy gets all the sporty genes. Yeah.
Well, I'm not really sporty, but just both my boys just loved soccer. And my eldest is 31 and my youngest is 21. And so my youngest has set up a soccer school here in the UK, and he coaches.
Oh my gosh.
That is so cool. That's so cool.
Well, I'm going to text you if we come back.
Definitely. That was last June that he was here.
Yeah, but he's coming out again this June. He's going to the same place to do the same thing again.
Oh,
and then they spend 3 months until September, and then they get to meet lots of other young people, and then they travel. So
gosh,
he did so much last year. He went to Chicago, Atlanta, Texas, Washington, New York.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I don't know how they did it, but they just got on buses, I think, and I think there were a few internal flights as well.
See, it's a smaller world than we think it is, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah,
it is.
Yeah.
But it did look lovely. Michigan looked absolutely lovely.
It is lovely. The seasons are beautiful.
Yeah, they are.
They are. Yep.
Probably not quite so hot as some places, but.
Oh, it can get hot, but not as some places for sure. And Cindy would be very happy to tell you that there aren't as many of the creepy crawly things in Michigan because we have that cold too. She's not a creepy crawly fan.
Oh, no, neither am I. I can't bear them. Ugh.
Yeah.
No thanks.
So how are we going to set expectations for these kiddos? How are we going to experientially teach them how to set expectations? Because really we have to remember this isn't about just making sure they adhere to the rules and stay safe. We want them to also find their voice and self-awareness. So I think we have to be cognizant of that. We can't just say.
I think maybe we get the horses to make the rules.
Ooh, I like that.
Love
get the horses.
Because then it's not you saying this is these are the rules.
Right.
It's just Alfie makes the rules, or I don't know which horse. What do you think the horse is like? What do you think they don't like? That kind of thing.
I love that. Yes.
And so they can make up. They can make up anything they like, and it might be really silly. Can't eat hamburgers or something. I don't know. It could be anything.
No hamburgers.
Yes, or no horse
eating
burgers.
Hamburgers.
Yeah, I mean they might. So
oh my God.
Let's help the horses feel safe.
Oh, I like that.
Because rules, they don't really like the sound of rules, do they? So how can we make the horses feel safe? Because horses are scaredy pants, and they like to run away from things that are scary. So how can we help them? What do you think? That kind of thing, maybe.
Love it.
So they might sort of say, oh, well, they might feel safe in their stable. And then you might say, well, maybe but they can't run away in their stable, can they? Where can they run away if they feel scared? They might feel safer outside in the pasture. And what do you think might be scary for a horse?
Oh, I like that too.
What do you think a horse, horses will run away from something scary. What might be scary to a horse? It might be something that's going to eat them, isn't it? Like a lion or a bear or a tiger or something like that. And they might add their own, mightn't they? They might add their own, it might be a dinosaur. We get a lot of dinosaurs.
Yes.
Oh, dinosaurs would be scary to the horse.
Yeah,
I'm sure they would.
So, you could get them thinking that way. So we could say, well, horses don't really like it if you make a sudden movement. So how can we help them feel safe? Well, maybe we need to move slowly. We need to move slowly around the horses, not scare them. And we mustn't creep up on horses.
And because soft voices.
Because they might not, they don't like shouting.
Right.
So this is quite a good way of giving the rules without sort of saying you must or you mustn't.
Right.
So you add a few of your own rules and they can add a few as well. Even if they're silly, it doesn't really matter. So that could just set the scene, couldn't it? And they could maybe do that while they're looking at the horses in the pasture behind the other side of the fence.
Right.
Do we want them to write them down, or
I think neurodivergent children really struggle with writing anything, to be quite frank. Would you agree, Cindy?
I would.
I don't think they like writing particularly. They might like to draw, but maybe
that might be good.
Do a sticker or something. I don't know.
Right. I was thinking that either a poster. We've done that before with poster boards.
Poster board. Do some signs, maybe.
Yeah.
We could call that a craft.
Somebody. Emma, do you work solo or do you have an assistant?
I work solo. It's all just me.
It's just you. God bless.
It's just me. Well, no, I have my very lovely horse helper I have a girl who works and helps me with the day-to-day running of the horses, but but no, as far as coaching is concerned, it's just me.
Well,
I like this.
I do too. What do you think, Delina? Maybe taking notes. I hate sticking my face in a pad of paper and writing when I people that,
I'm thinking of having the kids do it somehow, even if it is on a poster board that only they can decipher.
Could they not have their own workbook that you give them?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. We're a big fan of that.
Yeah, we like
so that they bring their workbook with them every session.
Yes.
And so you've done session 1 and you can tick, 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 or you sticker.
I love it.
Oh, there you go.
Yep. I got a sticker book.
Yeah, because they quite like that kind of thing, I think.
I do too.
And it's a lot easier, honestly, isn't it? And we don't then have to write up huge amounts of flipping notes.
Yes, amen, right? Yeah.
Because really, actually, with a child like this, I don't know, would you be going at it, Cindy, with your therapist hat on or your coaching hat on? Because if it's a therapist note, then we have to take all sorts of flipping notes for my supervision and all the rest of it, which is a pain.
I know.
in our perspective, and Cindy loves this, that's one reason Cindy's so attracted to coaching. It took me forever to talk her into trying it, but then well, I'll let you talk about it, Cindy.
Well, when she started this, it was so funny. We had been working together in EAP, right? And so I'm still have my clinical hat on. And then she said, coaching is big. People will come to, nah, blah, I've been doing this my whole life. But then I realized, holy crap, this is fun.
Yeah. Well,
it's
not more creative, isn't it?
Oh my
yes.
gosh.
Yes, it is.
No, so rigid, where I worked, and so, working for the insurance companies or working for the organization, or, and then this is, you get to be creative.
So, yeah, it's great.
I'm a convert.
I love that.
I was the other way around. I was always a coach.
See?
I was a riding coach, but I had to do the therapy bit because I was getting people who would be on my scope of practice. And then I would either have to refer them on. And that's why I trained to become a clinical trauma therapist.
I love
because
it.
otherwise I'd lose the client. Because
you do. You do.
Like you.
Yes. You have quite a nice. It's a lot easier to keep clients than it is to get a new clients all the time. So that is not. Right. Yeah, that's not a bad philosophy there, because you can move one client into the next program if you feel the need.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't really have a program. The thing is that when they come to me, because I integrate equine assisted learning when they come to me from an initial sort of discovery session, you very quickly work out whether they're a trauma client or a coaching client. But sometimes it doesn't always present until a bit later on. But if they're coming with something specific, like PTSD or complex trauma, then I have to go down that whole assessment route thing.
Yeah.
But I hate the form filling.
Oh,
the form filling.
Ugh, I hate it too. Sorry.
No, from listening to you guys, I hate it for you. Yeah.
Thank you.
I hate it for you. Yeah. So we have done some expectation setting. We've talked about instructions. We've let them make the rules, which definitely helps them find their voice. But it also is going to help with emotional regulation, probably, because sometimes we don't like rules, right?
It might.
They might have a reaction.
They might have a reaction, but then I think we do need to go into the
for sure.
The bodies.
For sure.
Every time with these kind of children, it's really important that we do some sort of mind-body awareness thing.
Do you think that would be something you'd like to do for the next session?
No, I would do it every session.
You do it yes. Okay.
I'd do it every session, just in the beginning, how are we feeling today? Let's, let's get into our bodies,
Shall we call that mind-body check-in?
Yeah. I mean, bearing in mind this is session 1 and they might not have met you before, they might want to observe the horses as well. But I kind of do the mind-body check-in as they're observing the horses usually.
Sure.
So that can be, you can kill 2 birds with 1 stone.
So you want to do that with her observation, maybe a little bit?
Yeah. I think you would do that. You'd do that in the observation, because I always start with observation. It doesn't matter what client I have, whether it's a coaching client or we always start. It's a starting point.
It often is for us too. It's a great way to start and kind of catch up too.
you can often see how they are from the way they come in through the gate, can't you?
Yes.
So when I'm asking them to observe the horses, I'm observing them and the horses, but
right.
You can tell quite a lot, can't you, from the body?
Yes.
Before you've even begun.
There is
sometimes the text looks so different, and I don't know why. It's supposed to be the same, but it doesn't look the same to me. But oh well.
It doesn't matter.
No, it doesn't. Not really.
Relax.
It has to be perfect. It must be perfect. Okay. I think that's a great session.
Yeah. I think horses,
guys.
I think the thing about horses making the rules, I think that's quite a lot of talking. I think these children need to do. So, you know, they've observed, they might have been able to stand still for a little bit. And I think if we go straight into horses make the rules, it's just too verbal for them.
Right.
I think they need to actually get near a horse.
Get near a horse. Do you think that needs to happen?
Well, what I do with the mind-body check-in and the observation, the way I do it at home is I do give them like maybe with adults, I give them maybe 5-6 minutes, maybe 8 minutes observation. But with a child, they can't keep that so much. No. And give them 3 minutes,
Right.
And then I play this game with them about how are we going to approach the horse, and you're going to approach me first and pretend that I'm the horse. And so we do that advanced retreat thing, make sure that they understand how to approach the horse and how to say hello to the horse, because they're usually loose, or I either do that in the yard if it's a rainy day or in the pasture, in the horseman's handshake.
Horse's handshake? The breathing?
Yeah. Well, no, we offer them the back of their hand.
Oh,
so that they can sniff you. And that might be quite a thing, for them, because that would fulfill the sensory thing. What can you feel? What does his nose feel like? It's soft. He's got whiskers. You can feel his breath on your back of your hand. That kind of thing. So that could be quite a good conversation.
I like that. So that's going to add to the. Yeah, actually, that's good, because we can't make rules for horses that we don't know anything about.
No, they've got to know them first, and then I may or may not, depending on the child, but sometimes they use something called a body scan. I don't know whether you're familiar with that, Cindy. I am. Yeah, I'm sure you are. Yeah. Where they just I just call it a noticing exercise. We're going to just notice what's going on in your body, and if they feel comfortable to close their eyes, and
right.
What can you see? What can you hear? What can you feel? What can you smell? You can keep it really simple. And then I get them to do it with their back to the horses, and then when they turn round.
Right.
And I asked them on a scale of 0 to 10, I just want you to pick one feeling, the feeling that you think is the most strong, and I want you to give it a number. And they might say, oh, I've got a hard, knotty lump in my chest or something, and it's a 9. And then I ask them to turn around, and I say, now look at the horses. Does that hard lump, knotty lump in your chest still feel the same? And very usually, with most people, it comes down. And we call it SUDS, the subjective units of distress and dissociation.
Right.
And
we
usually
used to do SUDS on the phone with people. Believe it or not.
How can you do SUDS on the phone? That must have been really difficult.
That was one of the rules, one of the assessments we had to do when I was working. I'm like, are you slipping for real?
How can you do that?
It's impossible.
It must be. Because the other thing is that, I mean, I suppose it just depends on the way you've been trained, but
right.
But we were taught to when we're using the body scan to turn, so that they're away from the horses and then they turn and face the horses, usually the suds come down. But you're also checking in with your own suds.
Yes.
So the thing is that sometimes you can feel it in your own body, can't you? If somebody's anxious, I sometimes will feel, I feel a bit,
of something stomach, here,
or I've got something here, and we pick up on that energy that's coming from them. But we also got to look at the horse and think, well, what's going on with the horse? What's the horse doing? Is the horse turning away? Is he doing some calming signals? Is he looking and chewing? Is he blinking? Is he turned his bottom to face us? So you're having to look and regulate yourself as well as watch what's going on in front of you. But
I think that's a great way of teaching these skills too to this population, because if we can use that, the horse's behavior, to show them, how the horses are picking up on their behaviors and how they're feeling.
Yeah,
I think that's a great way. Yeah.
So when they become more aware of, what's going on for me, I've got this hard knot in my tummy and it feels like a, 7 or something. And then they can see the horse and maybe if the horse sort of, gets ramped up or whatever, or say they get spooked or something, you say, well, maybe that horse has got a hard knot in his tummy too. I wonder what he's feeling like,
Maybe they do. That's, interesting. So we've got 9 minutes left. Do you think we should continue this program?
Definitely.
And,
I think it's so
keep writing it.
Definitely, because
keep writing the other ones.
It's a really, really big subject.
It is.
And it's very now. It's very, very current.
Yes, so, I agree.
I think
so. I'm planning on I'll schedule more of these free sessions, and we can continue to meet until we have 8 sessions. So we have a full curriculum for this demographic. How does that sound?
That sounds fantastic.
All right, we'll do that. I will send you guys an email. I'll send this recording as well as what we have so far.
You remember?
It's really good for
and
me,
I recorded it.
It's making me think out loud, because but it's giving me some structure, which is really, really helpful, because normally I would sit down, I've got all this stuff in my head that I want to try and get across, but I don't know how I'm going to do it. I'm fine in front of the horses because it just flows. But to actually get a kind of structure and a plan and what we're trying to achieve and a goal, that's where this is really, really helpful for me.
Good. Well, it's so fun for us. We will continue to work on creating the perfect program for Johnny and for all kids that are on the spectrum that, want to come to the barn. Thank you, Emma, for all of your patience.
Oh, no, that's all right. No, it's been very, very good. Thank you. The next one, which is on May it's the one where we're finishing the little girl, aren't we?
That was the plan, but we can. What would you like to do? Do you want to finish that friendship exercise in the club? Or would you like to move on to a different one?
I think I'd like to concentrate on this because it's very current for me now.
Okay. All right.
Because I'm going to be working from the beginning of June. I'm going to be working with this little boy, so it would be really helpful for me.
Okay, then we will move this to the club, and then we'll continue to work on that in May. And so that
would be great. And
it won't take too long to finish these 7 more sessions.
No, the friendship one would probably be quite good to finish as well, because I've also got in August, I've got 5 holiday sessions in July and August for children between the ages of 9 and 11.
Oh,
bless your heart. Wow.
So I need content, plus the fact I've got this pony club thing going on as well, and so some of it might tie in with what I've got to do for that too.
Okay. Well, I think we can probably do both in May. I don't think because we've talked a lot about a lot of the time consuming thing is to really make sure we understand the demographic. Now we just have to do the fun stuff, and that's, put together the session. So let's try and finish this one up since it's fresh. The 6th of May, I believe it is.
Yeah, I'm going to be in Spain.
The third weekend. Yeah. Oh, you're going to be in Spain.
I'm going to be in Spain, but I've still got my computer. I'm going to be in Spain
She's going to be in Spain. I'm going to be here.
Me too. I'm going to be here. Yeah.
I'm very lucky. We've got a house in Spain, so we go every May. We go for a month.
That's nice.
Which is really nice. But I'm taking my elderly parents, so it's not all a holiday because my father's got
You'll be working.
dementia. I will be working. My mother's not very mobile, so But it'll be lovely. It'll be really nice.
Yeah.
But I will be sitting in the sunshine thinking of content, I'm sure.
Oh, good. See, that